It was an anomaly today in how bond investors reacted to the CPI report released earlier today for April 2025, which many viewed favorably, but the sophisticated investors in bond land had a slightly negative reaction to it. The CPI report was slightly better than expected on the headline number, with CPI rising 0.2% month to month, rather than the consensus estimate of 0.3%. Annual CPI declined to 2.3% through April, with the consensus estimate at 2.4%, and the headline number was down by 1.1% from the 2.4% annual rate reported through March 2025. The month-to-month increase in core CPI was in line with a 2.2% increase, and the annual rate was at 2.8% unchanged from the prior month. If this report was as good as advertised on the financial news websites, then why did the 10-year Treasury rise to over 4.5% intraday on March 13th, up from 4.17% on April 30? And the odds of a Fed rate cut on or before the July meeting declined slightly compared to yesterday, with no rate cut being the more probable than not scenario using the CME FedWatch tool, compared to a 93% probability of at least a 25 basis point cut and a more probable than not prediction of a 0.5% cut 1 month ago on April 11th, 2025. So that's a very fundamental change in what bond investors are expecting as far as the future course of inflation and interest rates. Whenever I see an anomaly like I saw today, with the kind of reaction to the what many consider to be a good inflation report, I at least try to divine an opinion, reading the tea leaves, on what signal is being sent by the price anomaly and the reaction to it, to the CPI data. One reason is easy to discern. Energy prices have started to trend back higher after bottoming last month. The significant declines in those prices have restrained the headline CPI number. In March, for example, core CPI excludes energy and food and is higher annually and month to month than the headline CPI number. In addition, my interpretation is that the inflation report was not as favorable as advertised from the bond investor's perspective. Based on the lag in data collection, the April numbers only included a few days of the early April 2025 tariff increases imposed by Trump on all countries, and the inflationary tariff impacts will be delayed further by the massive imports in February and March 2025 to beat the tariff hikes. It will take time for those products imported prior to the tariff increases to run through inventory and the final sales. And then when the inventory is exhausted, the products that are subject to the tariff taxes will rise in price. Those are external factors which diminish the significance of the report today. Internally in that report, and I'm going to refer to some alternative measures of inflation that are compiled by the Atlanta Fed and the Cleveland Fed, starting with the Atlanta Fed Sticky Price Index, which uses the BLS data for CPI, but focuses on items that change price slowly and steadily rather than the ones that jump around all the time, up and down. The annualized rate of sticky price inflation in April was at 3.8%, up from 2.8% in March. And sticky price inflation for the 12 months ending in April was up 3.2%, much higher than the CPI and core CPI numbers reported by the BLS. The core CPI inflation number, sticky inflation number, was 3.8% over the 12-month period ending in April. Consumers are generally aware that inflation may slow down, but price increases for most items they purchase do not go down in price, but may simply increase at a slower rate than during a high inflationary period like 2021 and 2022. I recall buying a new Malibu around 1971, Chevrolet Malibu, and thought the sticker price was just outrageous, a major price shock to me, at least, at close to $3,000, as I recall. And this was for a new vehicle. The average new car price now is $50,000. The Cleveland Fed has confirming type data that shows inflation running hotter than the BLS CPI data series in both its trimmed and median CPI calculations. So both of those measures are significantly higher than the CPI numbers published by the BLS. So underneath the hood, inflation is still a problem, and that is prior to tariffs causing significant price hikes in many consumer purchases, particularly expensive items like cars. I expect those increases to start being material in the summer, possibly starting as early as June and into July and August. And there will also be a push higher in prices due to a lack of supply for many products due to the supply chain disruptions caused by primarily the high tariff taxes on China's exports to the United States, which, according to everything that I've read, has caused extreme havoc in the U.S. supply chains. Another inflationary factor, which will take more time than the tariffs to develop into increasing inflationary pressures, is the supply chain disruptions that will be caused by mass deportations that are underway now and just gaining steam. And those supply chain disruptions will primarily be in agricultural products, but also in construction and in several smaller factories. You can find the Cleveland Fed trimmed and median CPI data by simply Googling those terms, and the same would be true for the sticky price CPI data from the Atlanta Fed. The stock rally in recent days and the VIX decline to below 20 movement have combined to create the preconditions for me to reduce my already low stock allocation. I placed those preconditions to restrain my stock sales given my low stock allocation. I will only sell stocks or reduce stock funds where the price is higher now than the price as of the close on February 19th, 2025, when the S&P 500 hit its all-time high. That is primarily to restrain my selling now, and I have not sold any of the stocks that I could sell using those prerequisite conditions being met yet. I may start soon.